Will Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz be a repeat of George Groves versus Chris Eubank Jr.? Because one of my subscribers believes it will be, and Ortiz will be assuming the role of George Groves, and and Wilder will be assuming the role of Chris Eubank Jr. Shout out to my subscriber, I think it was Nanotech, who made that comparison. He thinks that Ortiz is simply going to outclass Deontay Wilder. Now, when I look at Luis Ortiz and compare him to George Groves, I don't see many similarities there. For one, George Groves had been fighting at the top level in the super middleweight division for many years. He'd been in the ring with Carl Froch twice, Badu Jack, he'd beaten James DeGale. You know, these are elite level super middleweights. Luis Ortiz has never fought even one elite level heavyweight. So in terms of quality of opposition, it's not there for Luis Ortiz. In fact, Luis Ortiz's quality of opposition has been no better than Deontay Wilder's quality of opposition. This is a step up for both Wilder and Ortiz. So that's one big difference, which I see in this fight than there was in the George Groves Eubank Jr. fight. Because in that situation, it was Eubank Jr. stepping up. George Groves wasn't stepping up. He'd fought at a higher level than Eubank Jr. had ever fought at. He'd fought plenty of elite competition. So it was only a step up for Eubank Jr., whereas this fight right here is a step up for both men. Because Ortiz has definitely never faced elite competition as a professional. Another thing about Luis Ortiz when you compare him to George Groves. Groves was the bigger man against Eubank Jr. and he was the guy with the better long-range game. Luis Ortiz is certainly not the bigger man against Deontay Wilder. He might be heavier, but he's certainly not taller, and his frame is certainly not bigger. Deontay Wilder is the bigger man. And Deontay Wilder, unlike Chris Eubank Jr., is actually very dangerous at long range. Eubank Jr. had to struggle to get close to George Groves because he's never had a good long range game when he has to go forward. Deontay Wilder has been able to land his right hand consistently at long range throughout his career. Even when he was struggling in certain fights like against Gerald Washington and Ortiz, he still found the right hand. People are talking about the Gerald Washington fight and how he struggled. Gerald Washington is 6'6". Luis Ortiz is 6'4" at best. I don't see it being that kind of fight. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it being that kind of fight. Also, Chris Eubank Jr. is not a one-punch knockout artist. Deontay Wilder is. He's a proven one-punch knockout man. So there's a big difference between somebody like a Deontay Wilder and a Chris Eubank Jr. in terms of their ability to change a fight suddenly. We've seen Wilder, as I've already mentioned, in fights where he's been struggling a little bit, maybe getting messed around or outboxed, but he finds the right hand and then it's all over. Eubank Jr. never had that kind of power. And Eubank Jr. did catch Groves in the second half of the fight with a few clean shots, but nothing bothered Groves at all. Eubank Jr. just don't have that kind of punching power at super middleweight, it seems. So I can understand where Nanotech, I think it was, is trying to go with this. But when I analyze both fighters and compare them to Eubank and Groves, I just don't see it. I don't see it. This is a step up for both guys, not just for one guy. And how old is Luis Ortiz? George Groves is still in his 20s. Luis Ortiz is not in his 20s. And they talk about Luis Ortiz's class, his boxing skills and all this kind of business. His boxing skills haven't been tested at the elite level. George Groves's had been. You know, so they say steel sharpens steel. Who has Ortiz been boxing that's going to make him so sharp in terms of his skills? Ortiz's two best wins were against an ancient, over the hill, completely past it Tony Thompson and Bryant Jennings. That's his two best wins, and both of those wins were several years ago. Since then, he's been out the ring, a lot of inactivity, and the opposition he has fought has been pretty poor. You know, so yeah, I mean, if you want a like for like comparison, Luis Ortiz went the distance with Malik Scott. Deontay Wilder dispatched Malik Scott in 1 round. And I know, I'm a bit dubious about the Wilder Malik Scott fight, but still, that is a like for like comparison. So I see this as being a far more competitive fight than Groves versus Eubank Jr. I don't see Wilder just simply getting outclassed and shut out the way that Groves was able to do to Eubank Jr. I don't think so. I think Wilder's very athletic and he'll use his athleticism. He's got height on Ortiz. They say Ortiz's reach is around the same as Wilder's or maybe an inch longer. I'm not so convinced that Ortiz is going to be controlling things on the outside. I'm not so convinced about that. I think if Ortiz's reach is maybe an inch longer than Wilder's, I think Wilder will make up for that with his foot speed and his hand speed and what have you. Ortiz is just not a big man the way Gerald Washington was. And even against Washington, people act as though Washington won the fight. He managed to fiddle Wilder around for 4 rounds and then he got clipped. Him getting clipped wasn't an accident, people. That wasn't a fluke. Wilder is prolific with the right hand. It's what people have to understand. It's not a situation where he got lucky, where he was getting outboxed. No. He knows how to land that right hand. So I think he will land the right hand against Ortiz at some point. And then we're going to see. Because people are talking about Wilder's punch resistance. How's Ortiz's punch resistance? How's he going to react when he gets hit by a Deontay Wilder right hand? That's the question people need to be asking themselves. Don't just think about what's going to happen if or when Ortiz lands. Think about what's going to happen when Wilder lands on Ortiz's old ass chin. You know what I mean? We'll see. Wilder is a tremendous puncher, people. It's not a myth. His punching power is for real. So I think it's going to be a competitive fight while it lasts. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. Luis Ortiz is in shape. He's motivated. He's definitely not scared. He's coming to fight. And he looks in much better shape than he's been in for a long time. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, shout out to Nanotech. Maybe he'll turn out to be correct. Maybe Ortiz will school Wilder and win every round. Maybe. But I personally don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think, you see, in the Eubank Jr. Groves fight, before the fight, in my prediction video, I said that if Eubank Jr. is going to win, he's going to have to come from behind on the scorecards and he's going to have to walk through hell to get the victory. I don't think Deontay Wilder will necessarily have to walk through hell to get the victory over Luis Ortiz. No, I could see Wilder getting the victory over Ortiz without taking too much serious punishment. Yeah, because he's the more athletic of the two. He's the one who can use the ring and what have you to take a breather and whatnot and force Ortiz to come at him and force Ortiz to overcommit and then punish Ortiz. So that's the way I see it, man. I think it's going to be exciting while it lasts. And I am expecting Deontay Wilder to try and box the same fight that he boxed against Bermane Stiverne in their first contest. A similar fight anyway. Obviously, Ortiz is a southpaw, not orthodox like Stiverne. And even though Ortiz, I think, is quite slow-footed, he's not as slow-footed as Stiverne. And I think he is a bit technically better, and he's definitely better at coming forward than Stiverne. Let's just put it that way. Stiverne has never been a good front foot fighter. Ortiz is pretty good on the front foot. But again, let's see what happens when Ortiz gets clipped. Let's see where his heart is at, because his heart is going to get tested in this fight. If Wilder clips him, his heart is going to get tested. Then we'll see what he's all about. Because we ain't seen Ortiz's heart get tested. We ain't seen Ortiz in a tough fight. We've seen Wilder in tough fights. You go look at that Johan Duopa fight. Has Ortiz fought anyone as tough and game as Johan Duopa so far in his career? He hasn't. He hasn't. You go look at Wilder in the Duopa fight. Wilder got his eyes swole up and he was having to fight hard in that fight to get the victory, which he eventually did. Ortiz has never even had to fight that hard to get a victory in a fight. So we don't know where his heart is at. And we don't know, he seems like he's got a fairly solid chin. He's got that short neck. He keeps his chin tucked down. But, he's definitely never been hit the way Wilder's going to hit him. So we'll see, man. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Again, shout out to Nanotech. I think it was you who left the comment. But that's my response. So, yeah. Let me know what you think, guys. It's that, man. I'm out. And, well, I've seen the face-off between Wilder and Ortiz just in closing. And yeah, Wilder looks very hyped. He's very serious. He's one of these kind of guys where when he feels threatened by his opponent, he starts mouthing off and all that kind of business. That's how Wilder is. He's an emotional character. And his team's job is to try and contain those emotions when he gets in the ring and get him to stick to a disciplined game plan. There is the possibility that Wilder could hurt Ortiz and then start windmilling, and Ortiz might still be coherent enough to catch Wilder while he's windmilling, because no one's ever been able to do that to Wilder so far. Wilder keeps his punches straight normally until he hurts you. When he hurts you, he gets wild, and people say that's when a good boxer would be able to capitalize. Well, we'll see if Ortiz can do that. We'll see what happens when Ortiz gets cracked. If he gets hurt, let's see whether he can take advantage of Wilder windmilling and maybe do a Julian Jackson. When Julian Jackson fought Harold Graham was winning the fight. He had Julian Jackson up against the ropes. He was teeing off. Julian Jackson caught him with one big right hand, and Harold Graham went to sleep. So, people believe that could happen to Deontay Wilder if he gets caught. If he starts windmilling, a top level boxer could catch him in that situation. So we'll see. Anyway, let me know how you feel, man. I'm out.